Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for November 29th, 2020, recorded around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this evening, not much is really going on in the tropical sense. We do have Invest Area 90L with a 40% chance of developing over the next 5 days as this gradually will drift off towards the south here and could impact the Canary Islands right here near Africa later in the week. And again, this could bring some showers and thunderstorms, gusty winds, heavy rainfall to the region, and also parts of coastal Africa could see some impacts from this. This is a relatively large storm system, and right now this is a extra tropical cyclone, not really gaining any tropical characteristics. However, this does have some subtropical characteristics and could develop into a subtropical depression or storm by later in the week. We are also watching here the remnants of 99L, which is now skirting on well towards the north and east, again, now north of Bermuda, not really posing a threat to land at all. We are also watching a potent storm system over the southern United States that's expected to merge with a secondary upper level low later tonight and tomorrow, creating a very powerful snow event across portions of Indiana and Ohio into parts of this week. So, getting a real close look here on 99L, you can see there is some shallow convection that is trying to build near the center. And again, this is right here, some of the Canaries, and all the way down here, you can see right there is part of the Canary Island right there. So this is a relatively big, broad storm system. And again, most of the deep convection or kind of moderate to deep convection is located off well towards the east of the system. However, we do have some shallower convection developing near the center of circulation. Now, this is a mid latitude cyclone. This is not a surface low, but if we can get enough convection to develop near the center, and as it drifts southward towards warmer water, this may actually have a chance to acquire some subtropical characteristics. Again, the main threat right now is just going to be gusty winds and heavy rainfall. Not really seeing a threat for this to develop into a very powerful hurricane or anything of that nature. The end of the hurricane season is tomorrow, so we are certainly in on the end of times here in terms of the hurricane season. I can see the Hurricane Center has outlooked this area with a 40% chance, generally kind of shifting southward towards the Canary Islands and then in this area over the next several days, but not really a deep concern to land at all, as this should begin to kind of encounter more hostile conditions towards the end of next week. Now, switching gears here towards lower 48 weather, we do have a conditional risk for severe weather over today and tomorrow across portions of the southeast. First of all, today, a slight risk for severe weather extends all the way from near Dothan, Alabama, and this is actually not the latest one. So here's the latest outlook here. You've got a slight risk from near Dothan, Alabama to Tallahassee, Florida, and we'll show this here on radar in a moment. A marginal risk just north of the Tampa Bay region, extending all the way towards Jacksonville, and another secondary slight risk in the warm sector across Charleston and Wilmington, North Carolina, and parts of the Outer Banks, with a marginal up to near Virginia Beach. So here's what's going on. We have a very powerful storm system coming across, and on day two, tomorrow, we have a marginal risk for severe storms from near Fort Pierce to Melbourne to Orlando towards Tampa, and a slight risk from near Wilmington up to Virginia Beach. This slight risk is for tornadoes, a higher potential for tornadoes, a marginal risk all the way up to near Boston and Springfield, Massachusetts, and again, that marginal down all the way towards near Orlando and Fort Pierce, or Fort Myers, Florida, rather. So what's going on is that we have a big storm system. We can see this on the radar right now. We have a relatively large storm system pushing across portions of Florida right now. And you can see a lot of convection is out here across the Gulf of Mexico and even all the way down here. All these little plus icons that look like addition signs. These are all lightning strikes within the last 30 minutes. So we can see that we have a clustering of lightning out here with some convective activity approaching the, you know, basically approaching the beaches up there near Fort Walton, etc. And then we also have additional lightning all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico here. This whole storm system is generally moving towards the north and east. And again, this line of storms, you can see here is the updated forecast, but the line of storms is expected to gradually transition eastward through the end of tonight and then into tomorrow. So by tomorrow morning, we're expecting a line of storms just sitting off the Tampa Bay area, and that's why we have this marginal risk that is all the way to near Tampa. This includes the Pinellas County area, Hillsborough, Hernando, etc. So what's really going on is we have some showers and storms, but you'll notice that they're not really severe. We have a couple of stronger storms. Now, a couple of individual cells, we can see that if we kind of pick things out here, a couple of individual cells are exhibiting some signs of rotation. You've got a rotating storm right here near Vicksburg. And if you kind of just jump down this line, you'll see that we have a couple of other areas of mesocyclone activity. We go up higher, you can see there's some meso activity down in here, and that's, clearly picked up there. But again, what you're generally seeing is the fact that we have some strong storms. This is like 20 some thousand feet up. So we're not going to be getting a good look here at these convective cells down here, but we definitely have a good look at this cell right here. And if we actually switch radars real quick, you might be able to pick that up in a better detail. Again, here's that slight risk area, generally around here. Now, these storms are on the far western edge of the slight risk, so they have to move all the way down and across, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any radar. So what's going on here, if we look here at the SPC mesoanalysis, we actually have, if we jump to Tallahassee, we can see that Tallahassee is in the open warm sector here, 66 Fahrenheit, surface temperature over 64 dew point. But if we jump back here to Jackson, Mississippi, we can see that Jackson is now in the cold front. This is all along this frontal boundary. We can see that we have a very clear temperature and dew point inversion. If we just kind of look here, we can see that the temperature and dew point line basically curves up and towards the right. And what this is indicating is that we have a inversion, and this is very classical of a frontal inversion through here. And we can actually see that we have wind out here at Jackson that is coming generally out of the northwest here. So we have generally flow that's coming out from there and is mixing behind that. Now, if we jump out here to, again, Tallahassee, we can definitely see a south wind here and a very curved hodograph in the first 0 to 3 kilometer range. So definitely a lot of effective shear, but you'll notice that we don't have any sort of instability. And again, that's mainly because you see the 64 dew point. Now, a 64 dew point, let's say somewhere out in Colorado, is much different than a 64 dew point in Tallahassee. And that's because, again, these dew points, because of the pressure, a 64 dew point here in Tallahassee is not the same as a 64 dew point in Colorado, and that's because of air pressure differences, etc. And, not to get all complicated with the microphysics and whatever, but this is not going to be supportive for tornadoes in this type of environment. This was the 0Z sounding, and this is definitely indicative of something that's not going to be giving us the good tornado threat as we progress through the next couple of hours. You can see we have a line of showers right here, prefrontal showers that are ahead of this line, but we can also see that these are not very deep thunderstorms with convective cloud tops maybe at the highest approaching 31,000 up there with that cell approaching Perry maybe, but very weak convection. These are not going to produce tornadoes. And again, none of these are even rotating at all, so you don't have any rotating cells there. We know that there's a good hodograph, but we can definitely tell that the biggest storms are going to be along this front, so supercells are definitely going to be hard to come by here. Now, if we look even further south, we've got Tampa Bay with a 63 over 74 and a pretty big dew point spike here that it goes way into about minus 20 through here. So definitely not going to be seeing much. Again, this is all ahead of the line. So we're going to see moistening in this environment. The photograph will enlarge quite a bit, but certainly not a very good environment so far for significant tornadoes. Now, if we check the models here, this is the HRRR, the 23Z HER. So this is coming from 6 p.m. Ron here. We can see all this prefrontal convection out across here doing fairly well. We'll run this forward to where we are now at 1Z. And we can see here's the line of storms, again, generally depicting this very accurately. And here's that prefrontal convection we were talking about, some of these scattered showers out ahead of this main line. And then we can actually see how this line will start to move generally towards the north and east. That line will degrade, but move into Florida sometime tomorrow morning. This is by about 12Z. So if we back this up, you could see Central Florida Peninsula start to feel the impacts roughly by 5. We're talking 5 or 6 o'clock, maybe even as early as 4 o'clock in the morning, and then continuing through the rest of the day. And for South Florida, it will be closer towards 1 o'clock before this line actually gets down there. So you're going to have some time before this cold front actually approaches. But behind this, there's going to be a big surge of cooler and much drier air behind it. So now looking at the severe weather parameters, again, the surface-based instability, not really a lot. You can see that the surface-based CAPE is not a lot there. If we switch out to the RAP model, we can also look at the reflectivity here, the simulated reflectivity. And again, you can kind of see that line working its way in. And if we take a representative sounding that is ahead of this line, this is by like 10Z tomorrow, we can see that the pattern is definitely a little supportive here for storms, some to be severe. You've definitely got fairly high moisture in the low levels in the first 0 to about 1 kilometer. Then after that, you've got a fairly big drop off and fairly substantial dry air out here in the mid levels. And what this is definitely indicating that we could see some of this dry air producing some gusty winds as it comes down. That dry air is going to have to, it's obviously subsidence, but you also notice that we've got a lot of higher wind up here. And this high wind could get easily transported down by thunderstorms going up. It's going to pull all this and mix with that dry air, and it's going to, basically warm, dry adiabatically. You're going to get some gusty winds in this type of environment. Now, the photograph, again, I talked about it enlarging. You can see it enlarges quite substantially there in the first 0 to 3 kilometer range. Now, if we kind of go back here, and again, if we look at what we've got in terms of the mid-level instability, we can see that the mid-level CAPE does increase out here to closer towards 1,000 right along the line. And what this might do, if we take another representative sounding, this might allow for thunderstorms along that line to develop. We can actually see here that we have a much deeper moisture profile here, and we definitely have more instability. So we definitely have surface-based and mid-level instability, although it's fairly weak. This is a low shear, or this is a high shear, low CAPE environment. And that photograph definitely very enlarged. The storm will be tilted over with height, so the updraft will be here, downdraft here. So that definitely is decent for supercells, and we would like to see that. But the surface-based instability and mid-level instability are relatively weak. So again, I agree with the Storm Prediction Center going with only a marginal risk. I could see them adding a 2% tornado risk. Currently, they don't have one. This is a 5% wind for parts of Central Florida. And if we also look out here in the open warm sector, closer towards coastal Carolina, you can definitely see here once the sounding loads that you could have a fairly substantial tornado event out there. A little bit convectively contaminated. We'll try to jump a little bit further towards the north. But the bottom line is there's going to be a risk. Here we go. A fairly substantial risk for tornadoes out there. You can see a fairly curved photograph. This indicates very strong shear in the atmosphere. Definitely more in the way of surface-based and mid-level instability, all the way up to the equilibrium level. A well established curved photograph. So definitely seeing the signs for a greater tornado threat over across portions of coastal North Carolina tomorrow. So we could see maybe two modes of severe weather, one along the squall line, and we might even see some prefrontal supercells that develop out here. And because this area has a lot of land friction, but not only that, but sometimes that friction will decrease over the water. You could easily get a couple of spin up tornadoes, and I would not be surprised to see a couple of spin up tornadoes there. Maybe one or two surprise tornadoes out here if you're lucky across portions of Central Florida tomorrow. All right. That being said, I hope you have a great rest of your evening and tomorrow afternoon. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. Stay safe, everyone. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.